Welcome to the live stream, everybody. Basically, Bitcoin is kind of, we had this beautiful move to the upside yesterday, but I'm really not convinced that this move is going to stick for the long term yet. I'm seeing mixed signals right now on the midterm to long term, so I'm feeling 50-50 right now. I don't have a strong bias either way right now, and I'll kind of get into a few reasons for that. So, just looking at the 4-hour chart here. I'm actually going to modify this just very slightly, but basically I have these upward sloping white trend lines. These are fairly important trend lines. These are on the 4-hour chart. That's a fairly long range. I mean, some of these, this is dating back to March, and I mean back here we're dating all the way back to December. So I mean, some of these trend lines, it's very possible that they carry some serious weight to them. And even recently, after we ended up breaking down below these trend lines, I mean, when we broke through the first one, we just absolutely capitulated from there, as far as the 4-hour chart goes anyways. And in some of my previous streams, I was talking about, if we ended up losing basically this support level, and I thought that, we should really watch this upward sloping trend line. If we get some kind of a fake out along it, I would actually become quite bullish. But we just absolutely cut through it like a hot knife through butter, and the bulls were nowhere to be found. And I was talking about, if that happens, if we drop this diagonal support, basically, I was thinking, absolutely, I see the reasons that we end up testing back down to this level here. I was even being a little bit conservative. I did nail a short at this time, but I was being a little bit conservative. I never quite waited until we hit this horizontal support level, although we did absolutely test it beautifully. But I was more watching the 786, 886 Fibonacci's, because I figured, if the bulls are going to gain some traction on this dump, that this is my favorite Fibonacci pocket, the 786 to 886, which I've talked about on pretty much every stream recently. And that was the level that I was watching for Bitcoin to find support. And we did absolutely just range in there. I was quite vocal that I thought it looked weak once we got there. But I mean, that's often how support looks. So I was taking short scalps in here. I was also taking long scalps in here. I never did catch this gigantic green dildo there. So unfortunately, I missed that trade. But that's totally fine. I was just kind of scalping in this range, and I'm just scalping again right now because I just don't have a strong bias, like I was saying. So, yeah, basically this was the box that I was targeting, so it's nice to see that the candle bodies were consolidating then in there, forming it as support. We got this double bottom, and something about this double bottom is that what is nice to see is technically that was the higher low of this trend that I was looking to. Well, I mean, if we're going to carry on a bullish trend, we had to hold that level basically. And my reasoning for that is back here we have this, here I'll just make it a flat line. But we had this high back here, and we did break it. Yes, it was short-lived. It was a bit of a fake out, but we broke this line a few times. So this is just setting a bit of a higher high here, especially right here at the end before we dumped. Even though we got that dump after hitting that level, we did close candle bodies above this high back here. So technically speaking, the lowest point between those two should be our higher low. And that would be where I have this purple trend line down here, this purple horizontal level. So the fact that we tested it so pinpoint accurate, I mean, that's a great place that you want to see that reaction from. What I didn't like about it was that after we dumped past our second macro trend line here, and I am just going to adjust it very slightly, just because I really like having my pinpoint accurate touch points on the wicks. But yeah, basically didn't really change too much. We get our second touch point, and then after we broke down below that trend line, we actually got a beautiful support to resist flip. From the bottom side, we obviously tested it a couple times, and we were rejected from that level. So that's where I was openly flipping a little bit bearish, just the fact that we couldn't gain any momentum. We were doing just a typical support resist flip on a very important diagonal trend line, I'm going to say. So the fact that we did end up getting right back above that now is nice to see. I know that we have wicked below it on the 4 hour here, but we are still technically closing these candle bodies above it, and we are going to get another 4 hour close in about 43 minutes here. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Just as far as just this move alone, I'm really micro-analyzing here. But this is kind of a level that I wouldn't have really liked to see us drop below either. Although it's not like this was a confirmed higher low, because we would have had to from here break above this level. That we would have had a higher high. That would have confirmed this as a higher low, but that didn't happen. So as it stands right now, yes, there is a little bit of structure there on the 4 hour. Very micro-analyzing here. But we did end up getting candle bodies closing below that, kind of looking like a little bit of an M. So now, in my opinion, I want to see the bulls get back above this yellow line, basically. Because looking at the trend, the very same. I mean, it's a very small pullback here, but if we're going to treat this as a little bit of a downswing here, we would have this low, and now we broke that, so we have a lower low. The highest point between those two levels is this yellow line here. So just on a very micro level here, considering the 4 hour, feels like an eternity for me. But that's the level that I would like to see the bulls reclaim and start closing candle bodies above that. And then I would start to be a little bit more bullish on this pullback once again. Invalidation would be below this yellow line. I mean, it's possible that we're just going to range sideways in here. That's absolutely a possibility. We obviously have to wait and see what the charts decide to tell us. I'm just pointing out some levels that I'm watching, how we can expect them to react and that sort of thing. So as it stands right now, this is kind of the range we're in. So we're, just going to have to see what happens with this 4 hour close here. If we get a green 4 hour close here, then I'm considering this kind of our lower low. If we break that, then I'm going to be dropping our the current low, or high, the current high that we have here. If we close this 4 hour candle like this and then lose this support level, I would basically be dropping this down to wherever we topped out between this low and wherever we would bottom out next time. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if that type of structure, if you're just not quite wrapping your head around it or anything like that. Just kind of some basic market structure type of thing for horizontal levels. But those are a few things that I'm watching for now. I'm going to put this back up because, like I said, there's a few what ifs between now and then. So we're going to have to see. It would be nice to see the bulls hold this line. I mean, maybe I have to adjust that line a little bit? Oh yeah, I'm not hitting that second touch point there. I am going to adjust this once more here. Like I said, I just really like my trend lines to be touching wicks. So I mean, if that's the case, we got our 1 touch point, 2 touch points, broke below. In that case, the trend line may have moved a little bit, and we may have actually got this little bit of a fake out, a bit of a bull trap, whereas we dropped right back down below it again, even got this little bit of respect there. I'm not going to lie, that doesn't look too great. But like I said, the fact that we did end up breaking above this level. The only thing I don't like about this is, again, going back to basic market structure, is this was not actually a confirmed lower high, because we had this low set here and we never did sweep that low. So technically speaking, on the 4 hour, I mean, our lower high is way up here. Basically the top of my red box. So that's another thing, you guys. Like I said, I mean, there's a lot of mixed signals right now. So yes, it's great that we're seeing this pump here, but no matter how you look at it, Bitcoin has a ton of resistance up ahead. Both my diagonal trend lines, we have this way up here is our lower high on the 4 hour trend. Gonna bring up some indicators here. This is actually a nice early warning sign. You guys know I love talking about which way these W's are trending. And just recently, I mean, this what would have that been? Yesterday, I guess. Yesterday, early today, would have been the first time that we actually got a higher high as far as these W's go. I mean, when the trend reversed here, obviously we had this high, we had a higher one. And then when we finally reversed that, we got our lower high. I mean, ever since that, it's just been lower W, lower W, lower, lower, lower. And this is finally a little bit of a warning that we may be going to the upside. When I use this strategy, you guys, that at this on its own is not enough for me to flip bullish. It's more of a warning. But if we then see the same thing, let's say we have these trending to the upside, but then now if we get a pullback of some kind and then set another higher low W here, that would be very nice to see. That we haven't seen that in quite some time in this market. I would love to see that, and that's at least a little bit of confluence showing that, hey, this trend may actually be flipping to the upside. But like I said, we don't have that W yet. We're going to have to see what happens. And I know one of my topics for today, guys, is risk management. So let's go hypothetical here and using these indicators, using them as risk management. Like I said, when these W's even one direction flip, it's a bit of a like I said, an early warning that things may be shifting. So that's where, hey, let's say we're in a short, looking for a swing short somewhere in here. This is just a little bit of a warning that, hey, maybe I should downsize my position or even close it out, just suck up the loss or take profits depending how you're sitting. Just showing that, hey, things aren't 100% in my favor anymore. I'm starting to lose a little bit of confidence because these are just warning me a little bit. I really like to use these in that case. You know, I really like when I'm in a position, I use these W's for entering positions. I use them for taking profits on positions, setting stop losses for positions, all kind of different strategies, but just ways that you can use these indicators for additional risk management. So like I said, just looking forward, let's say that here, actually, let me erase some things just because I really want to clean things up. So like I said, we had all of our bearish W's here. Let's make them red, just so it's easier to see that they're bearish. For the most part, even on the bottoms, they were lower, low, lower, low, lower, lower. This was one of those times as well. You know, we got that warning that things may be shifting, but only the bottom ones were saying that. The top ones never did align with that. So this was just a little bit of a warning more than anything, that things may be reversing to the upside. And obviously it never happened. The W's on top did not agree with that. So we kept trending to the downside. Again, lower, low, lower, low. So again, they were just trending to the downside some more. So now, like I said, we do have this little bit of a early warning sign, right? We don't have the W's aligning yet, but we do have this bit of a warning. So let's say now we get a higher low. I'm going to make it green because that would be a bullish one because they would be lining up with each other. That would be great to see. But then it comes back down to that whole risk management side of things. If, let's say, we do get a very short-lived bounce, but all of a sudden we see the bottom W start trending to the downside again, that's just where I start to lose confidence a little bit. And obviously I'm not relying strictly on this strategy. That's all I'm doing when I'm entering positions, kind of a thing. I'm just showing how I use them to just add a little bit of confluence in my trade setups, whether it's getting into or out of a position. So this is just one thing that may make me just second guess my position if we see them kind of do something like this. How many of you guys, I know a lot of you guys have probably seen me posting about the W's. Have any of you guys paid attention to which way they're trending or anything like that? Have you used that as confluence in your trade setups before? I know Pete's not here today. I know he's been using it quite a bit. He said he loves using it. It's one of those strategies that honestly, when I lose scalps, it's usually because I'm ignoring my own strategy. It's, oh, hey, the W's are trending this direction, but I sense a reversal. I'm going to do my own thing. Usually bites me in the ass. That's usually when it happens. Bitcoin is, oh, I probably got stopped out because I had a really tight stop loss on that. Another strategy I really like to use is actually when we get these W's at the 1 hour trend. That would be beautiful actually if we did get a little bit further of a pump and kind of tested into this supply zone. For one, you can see it's a very strong supply zone because there's actually a couple different boxes inside this range here. And as well, we have the 1 hour trend here, and that's on my ALGO 3. Yeah, here my trend 1 is a 5-minute volume weighted moving average, and trend 2 is that 1 hour EMA. That would be this guy right here. Actually, where are we here? Yes. So below us now, we do have the 5-minute volume weighted moving average, which could be support, obviously. But I really like looking at that 1 hour EMA. It can be such a strong level to, when you get the retests, can be such a strong entry level. Not that it works out every single time, but the how tight you can have your stop loss compared to the size of move you may end up catching with this, because this is a trending indicator and it can quite often tell you which way the trend is going to be heading. So I know I was talking about that massive short that I had just a couple weeks ago when I caught that big dump we had. It was based on that. You know, we came up, the price kind of came up to this indicator, basically did one of these and formed a reversal warning on some kind of consolidation right there. I ended up pulling a trigger on the short, and my stop loss was within $30 or something. Like after we sorry, getting tongue tied here. After we dropped back down below the 1 hour EMA, then I was able to basically choose this as my invalidation level. So I had a stop loss with just a little bit of wiggle room. Obviously, this is a theoretical level because that's not what the chart looks like right here. But it was that kind of setup that I was able to have such a tight stop loss within about $30, and I ended up catching a $4,000 move with it. So the risk reward, even after, I obviously never caught the whole move with my whole position, but even after taking profits along the way on that short, I made something I think it was between 35 and 40 times more than I would have lost if I got stopped out. So that's where a lot of people will say, you have to win more than 50% of your trades. That's just simply not true. What matters is, how much you're losing versus how much you're winning in those positions. So that's where I really like this 1 hour EMA. Because like I said, if we get a test of that, we see these W's start forming on them. That can be such a strong level to enter a position. I'm tempted to start laddering in a small short. I think we can come up. I really want to see us test this EMA just to see how it's reacted with, because honestly, the way the bulls are right now, with bullish news coming out with the SEC losing their court case, everyone's aware of that. The talks of Bitcoin ETFs are back on the table, that sort of thing. I don't really want to bet against the bulls too much right now, but like I said, there's so much resistance ahead, and this can be one of those positions that you can scalp an entry with such a tight stop loss that I do want to see how we end up reacting with this level. Even though my W's are switching to the downside here, I'm really tempted to take a bit of a short, but we're just so close to that 1 hour EMA that I would really like to see us test it. Audio's breaking up. Oh. Weird. I must have twisted my wire or something like that. Well, hopefully you didn't miss too much there. The W's don't always show on alts or the 1 hour EMA. This looks like it's about to break out. This looks kind of like an ascending triangle here. What's the ALGO saying? We do still have this resistance up ahead. I'm not really comfortable taking a position on this right now. The W's should show up. Are you loading a different chart by chance? Like one of your pre-saved charts, and maybe the settings are just slightly different? I know sometimes I'll bring up a different chart of mine and then go back to certain charts or trading pairs, and then I'll be wondering why my indicators are a little bit different. But guys, I keep mine very clean. Like obviously you can tell I don't really do too many signals. I just have certain strategies that I personally like using. I love having the inverted colors on the ALGO 3 because that just kind of lines up with all the other indicators, like the oscillator 4 up here. I'm actually going to go back to Bitcoin here. Going to here, let's bring up the indicator settings here. Yeah, like I said, I really like having inverted color on just because then that's where we start to see all the indicators kind of lining up with their colors as well. Like even right now, you can see that we're getting near resistance. We're starting to see reversal warnings. Our candles are starting to be bright red. The oscillator 4 is getting into that red territory. The oscillator 5 also starting to show these red dots and stuff. So I really like having the inverted candle colors. Just for that reason that it kind of lines everything up, because I really like to see all three indicators line up together like that. Oh, I'm so tempted to take a short right now, but like I said, I really want to see how we react with this 1 hour EMA. That's really what I'm waiting for right now, and I might not get it. If they're just infrequent on, it could just be the trading pair you're on, like different exchanges. It can also vary. So, I mean, it really depends on the chart you're on. Usually, like I haven't traded a ton of altcoins lately. I've been trading Solana a little bit the last few days. And yeah, I have been seeing a lot of W's still. See, this is one of those things, guys. Just look at that. Like you can, I mean, anyone can look at a chart and say, yeah, it's obviously trending down. But when you see these W's trending down like this, I mean, just look at the beautiful signals you get when, like, let's say, obviously, we just have a whole bunch of lows getting lower. When you get that, and then you get the lower highs coming in, I mean, you get signals like this. I mean, look at those beautiful sell signals, especially when it's along one of the trends. Like I said, I really like the 1 hour EMA as far as the trend, but I also have that 5-minute weighted, volume weighted moving average. And when I get those W's along those trends, that's just another one where, you know what, you could take a short on a setup like this. You know, you have your W right along that 5-minute volume weighted moving average. You have a nice tight stop loss just kind of up above this structure back here, because I would like to keep my stop loss above the previous W, obviously, because you know, if we break that level, that's where we start to think, hey, you know what, maybe the trend isn't continuing to the downside, but I give a little bit of wiggle room, and we also have these supply zones here. So that would have been a good setup. Obviously, this is just Captain Hindsight, you guys. I'm just showing that how these W's can really point out some beautiful opportunities for nice tight stop losses when you're looking at day trading specifically. I'm more of a scalper myself than a swing trader. So that's one of the things that's basically a must on my list now is which way the W's are trending. See what the biddy is doing. Yeah, never quite got up there yet. I'm wondering if we don't maybe just take a little bit of a pullback yet and then maybe find support along this moving average down here and then get our retests of that. I'm really itching to see that. There is a little bit of a lag on this version where the 1 hour EMA trend here isn't keeping up to the 1 minute chart. So I kind of have to improvise a little bit. Sometimes I'll just make my own little trend line to go with it. It's just a ballpark, right? Looks pretty natural, something like that. And then quite often what I'll do, you guys, just a bit of a heads up for what I like to do. Then if I have a line like this, that it's an obvious level that I'm interested in playing, I'll add alert on that trend. Because like I said, I want to see how it's reacted with. And since I'm looking at scalping the 1 minute after it gets retested, seeing how it gets retested with it, that's where I like to set an alert on that level or approximately that level. And I want it to go every minute. I don't care if I'm sleeping, if I'm out and about on the town, if I'm out kite surfing or paddleboarding down a river. I want my phone to let me know. And if it lets me know every single minute after, while that line is basically being retested, then I'm going to eventually check my phone and at least see what's happening there. So that's something that I like to do when there's a level of interest, and that goes for more than just this, obviously, but any level that I'm watching. Let's say this is an important level I'm watching, boom, same thing. I just like to add an alert, go once per minute. That's not for everybody. Not everyone likes being woken up in the middle of the night, but do what you got to do, and I don't mind. I really don't mind waking up here and there if it's gonna possibly make me some money. Let's check out some longer time frames though as well. Actually, here I got a couple charts up here. Let's go back to the 1 minute on this so that we're ready for some proper degenning here. Actually, I want to take a look at my weekly chart. I have been, for months now, I was calling for this 618 fib retest. I was even thinking, I'm not going to lie, I totally thought in July specifically we were going to end up testing up here. It seemed unrealistic at the time. I thought it was actually quite probable, and it never happened, and that's totally fine. If more than anything, it's just a level that's on my radar, and it still is, to be honest. If we ever test up to this level, I'm going to be very carefully watching the market, because I think a lot of people are going to be getting an insane amount of FOMO as we get up near that $50,000 level, and I think it's a recipe to get wrecked. For a few reasons. One, we have that 618 Fibonacci level. We also line up with this structure in the chart back here. I think if we do get to this level, and obviously guys, this is probably going to be a long time from now. I'm talking months. It's probably, if it even happens this year, I think at this point it's going to be later, like more November, December kind of a thing. But again, I'm not really a time analyst, more of watching levels, but just watching how previous market cycles have respected that 618 after the bear market. It's just obviously such an important level in the market, not just seeing where we get a harsh rejection generally, but look what happens when a weekly candle actually closes above that level. The market just went absolutely parabolic. We go back another market cycle, same thing. When we tested that level, we got a 40% correction to the downside here. We got a weekly candle body close above and just went absolutely parabolic. So more than anything, this is just a level that's on my radar, and I think if we approach that level in sometime this year, we got a couple people here with their mics on. All good. If I end up muting anybody just because I'm getting background noise or anything, just let me know if you want to hop on the voice chat. It's no big deal. I'm just muting people if I get background noise or whatever. But yeah, looking at the weekly chart, like I said, basically, if we do get a breakout above this blue box here, that's where I'm starting to target that 618 once again. But obviously, Bitcoin has a lot of work to do between now and then. Like I was talking about earlier on the 4-hour and the daily, there was a lot of different resistance levels to watch for. But like I said, not all hope is lost, because, we are still technically holding this support level. And this is after we broke market structure on a very serious time frame, when Bitcoin had this low. Well, obviously just setting, low, low, lower, lower, low. So this would have been the first time that we had a lower high level, this purple line here, that was broken. We even came back and retested it perfectly, got a bounce, and that's exactly where we ended up testing again on this massive dump that Bitcoin had. We are still technically respecting that level, so I would even give it a little bit of wiggle room, to be honest. Give it, let's just say, the whole wicks of that lower high structure on the weekly time frame, I think this whole level is very reasonable for Bitcoin to end up finding support. If we end up losing that, I mean, that's where the floodgates open again, and we have to start targeting some much lower levels. That's where I really honestly think that if we drop kind of that $24,000 level, that's where I think it's only a matter of time until we're seeing $20,000 again. I mean, that doesn't have to happen. There's obviously a lot of things that could happen between now and then. There'll be new trend lines that we can watch for, something like that. So there'll be a lot of things happening in the charts. But just looking at realistic levels, I mean, we drop a very serious horizontal level of support like that. And I mean, it could be quite a tumble after that. So yeah, just a few macro levels that I really wanted to point out to you guys because, yeah, there could be some very large moves with tests of those levels. Bitcoin now getting a little bit of a bounce out of this moving average cloud on the 1 minute. Maybe we're taking another run at that 1 hour EMA, that 1 hour trend. Is anyone in any positions? Did anyone catch that massive long yesterday? Like I said, I totally missed that. Congratulations if anybody caught that, because that was wonderful. I basically caught the opposite move on the way down when I caught that short, so I know it feels great when you catch a move like that. Oh, you missed it too? Ah, shucks. Yeah, you can't catch them all, but you know what? The markets, that's why we love crypto, right? I mean, the volatility, that's the main reason why I love crypto. I mean, after I've used Bitcoin in my everyday regular life, and I just absolutely love it since I started doing that. But I more got into crypto for the volatility, just because knowing that either direction it goes, there's always volatility, there's always trades to be made. So that's what we love about it. We'll get second pump. Yeah, you know what? Like, honestly, on the 4 hour, I really do think that even if, I mean, look at all this resistance we have up ahead. I'm just going to remove some drawings again. This is all on the ALGO 3, just making these supply zones up here. This is not my own analysis. And I mean, I agree with all of it. There's just a ton of resistance up ahead. Like I said, I think the resistance level I was watching was basically like this. That's what I had. But I mean, you can see it's just kind of at the start of resistance. That's just kind of that lower high area that I was watching on the 4 hour. So I think there's absolutely the possibility that we end up getting a bigger pump to the upside. Even if we end up, you know, just getting some kind of a pump up here, and then let's say we do just nuke and we end up setting new lower lows, I still really, at this point, am thinking that Bitcoin is going to test higher levels. I just don't know when, and you know what, it doesn't have to either, right? But more importantly, I don't know when or how it's going to happen. So that's why, like I said, I am more of a scalper, and that's where I'm basically looking for this retest of the 1 hour trend. And like I said, even if we get it, if let's say we get that test, come back down, trade below, then we have a reference point for a stop loss if we were to enter short. Like I said, it's not going to work out every time, but man, the size of moves you can get from a scalp off that level, I will take it every time. If I feel like, you know, there's the W there, you basically just get a fake out of that 1 hour trend. That would be my 1 hour EMA. If we test that, get that W, I would love to enter a bit of a short. Like I said, it's a little bit risky because I don't know how I feel about betting against the bulls right now, but just as a strategy on its own, I mean, it's made some very nice calls in the past, so usually a very small loss for the amount that you could win. Um, 1 hour candle. Oops. One thing to consider about the 1 hour right now, just to be a little bit cautious. Let me turn off the algo. Just looking at this is very micro analyzing. This is by no means a range, just very much an immediate swing kind of thing. We had this high here, and we obviously got candle bodies. We even got this pullback, and then we had candle bodies closing above that level, so a bit of a higher high. This would have been our confirmed higher low. Let me just get an actual horizontal line there. So the fact that we actually got some candle bodies closing back below this level here makes me think that structure may be broke. Well, structure is broken there. Could be just forming a bigger falling wedge or something like that. But something to consider is that we may see some resistance coming into play here. Obviously just our current high of this range, but then also just basically where we broke down here, where we set this lower high here. Again, very micro analyzing, just looking at the very immediate little swing here. But yeah, we obviously have a little bit of resistance up ahead. Yeah. Really, I'd even start kind of watching the highs of this little range here. Let's actually adjust that slightly. So yeah, this is just a little bit of a warning again that structure was broke. So maybe we see some kind of a pullback up, even if we are going to actually end up changing the trend to the downside here. And, you know, like this was just such a crazy pump, you guys, that we have to assume it's very reasonable to expect that we fill in some of this candle that we had, right? I believe that's what you were talking about there, Pete, I believe. But yeah, I think it would make a lot of sense that we pull back somewhere in there. And again, if we were looking for levels here, let's just bring up a Fibonacci from basically just this pump here. And another thing, you guys, is I'm going to actually take out my boxes here. We're going to look at some Fibonacci's now. Let's lock that in place. We did end up dropping that 382 Fibonacci, closing candles below it, and right now we're kind of fighting with it a bit. I notice that quite often, like if you're in a very strong trend, like if the bulls were real horned up right now and ready to step on the gas, usually what you'll see is the 382 be a very strong level on pullback. And, you know, we never really got that. We just kind of toppled over, just rolled over and dropped that level. Quite often, if we drop that level, the 618 is also very important. But as I was talking about earlier, I really like the 786, 886. It just calls for tighter stop losses. And as well, it's respected so much. It's so often I see that on smaller time frames, larger time frames. That's just such a beautiful Fibonacci pocket. So I really would, and you know, that would fill in most of this candle. Not only that, but it basically lines up perfectly with the resistance that we had back here. So a nice resist support flip. So if we end up getting some kind of a rejection, I think that would be a very interesting level in the market to watch. See what happens on shorter time frames in that box, basically. I might actually leave that out for now. But yeah, like I said, quite often when we lose the 382, eventually we end up testing some of those lower Fibonacci's. Like I said, usually if it's a very strong trend, we see that 382 hold as support. Yeah, the 618, if you're less of a degen than me and using more reasonable leverage. Usually I'm using pretty high leverage. But yeah, the 618. I also don't like to set blind orders personally. Like I would, that's a level of interest for me. I would like to see how the price is reacting with the 618. But I personally don't just set blind orders. I kind of want to see how the levels are reacted with. Much like what I was talking about with this 1 hour EMA, right? I'm not setting blind orders at that level. I really want to see how it's reacted with. Unfortunately, Bitcoin just doesn't want to go and test that level. Yes, Crypto Soho. I do like to use the MDX 5 as well quite often. I don't rely solely on it, but I quite often use that. You can see I have the oscillator 4 up on top and the oscillator 5 down below. I really like when you see all three indicators line up. Like I was talking earlier about bright red candles, reversal warnings on the ALGO 3, oscillator 4, let's say a bearish pivot and bearish divergence, and oscillator 5 with bearish divergences. I love to see that kind of a setup. Like I said, I wasn't taking this trade. I don't really want to enter a short until we test this 1 hour EMA, just because we're getting so close. I mean, I may have missed my opportunity, but I really think we're going to end up testing it. What time frame are you talking about there, Steven? Oh, 4 hour. Can you explain more the MDX4? I don't quite understand the difference between this and the MDX5. Honestly, for me, well, it's kind of more like a Bollinger Bands. Like you can see that sometimes it'll end up breaking out or whatever. Quite often you can see the resistance and support of these bands as well. But for the most part, me personally, I'm still just really looking for divergences. You can see that I have the R's for regular divergences as well as H. That's something I think you actually have to manually do on the oscillator 4 and 5, is add the hidden divergences. I just like all divergences to pop up basically. And the way that I use this is basically trying to find those divergences, or also a couple other things with this indicator is we have the orange. Those orange dots are basically potential trend exhaustion. And also these yellow diamonds, which are, that would be a bearish pivot kind of a thing. So like on its own, not necessarily going to call out a trend reversal or whatever, but where you see things really start to line up with each other, that's where it can be very juicy. Like here, we have a bearish pivot, trend exhaustion right at the top of the oscillator 4, lining up with this reversal warning on the ALGO 3, bright red candles. We can see those just kind of lining up with each other, so it's just using that as a little bit of confluence. So that's just basically like the oscillator 4 just has a few added features, I guess. The pivot, the trend exhaustion. But then the oscillator 5 has some beautiful things like the money flow, like this cloud in the middle. I'm not sure how familiar you are with this. But this money flow cloud in the middle can be quite telling, just because obviously money talks. And if you don't have the money flow lining up with you, that can just be another little bit of confluence in deciding whether or not to take a position. But yeah, as far as the oscillator 4, I like the regular divergences, hidden divergences, the pivots, and the trend exhaustions, just kind of lining up with the other indicators, basically, is how I use it. I have never really been much of a Bollinger Bands guy, so I can't really speak for that too much. Um, we're actually coming up on an hour here, guys. I have somewhere I gotta be, so I can't let. I know I said this last time, but I can't let this go for 2 hours again, or four, as we've been known to do. So I'm really just gonna be here for a few more minutes. Does anyone have any other questions about my settings or the features? Just for the last little bit here, I'm gonna bring up the trade setup as well. Trade setup feature. See how it's doing on the 1 minute right now. Actually, I want to check it on a few different time frames. Ooh, Solana. Feel like I missed that, but you can see the W's are starting to trend to the downside. That's where it might be nice if we see some. I don't know if you guys are into trading altcoins as well, but that's where we see, you know, the W's are starting to trend to the downside. Be nice to see some kind of a bounce with the W. That would be potentially a very nice entry, especially if we see this 5 minute moving average start lining up and we get a W, something like that. Then obviously you have a nice tight stop just somewhere above this structure back here. That would be a setup that I'd be interested in looking for, since we already had this little bit of a breakdown. Trading right into support right now, so I don't want to take that. What do we have here? We have this trade setup feature has flipped short, very close to his first take profit. Obviously, guys, when you're on the 1 minute, you're not looking for gigantic moves, right? I mean, if you're on the 1 minute, you're not looking for a home run 4 hour trade results. So yes, sometimes the take profits are very close. That's totally normal. That's how you should be trading the 1 minute if you are. Let's take a look at some longer time frames. On the 4 hour here, I'm curious to see what it'll say. The 4 hour has flipped long. Something that I do, like when I do look at this for Confluence, like sometimes I just want a second opinion about a stop loss or anything like that. Sometimes I'll bring up this feature. I'll usually have my stop a little bit looser than what the indicator has it. But actually, speaking of that, another interesting little strategy that I have used with this feature on the ALGO 3 is quite often you'll end up trading very closely to the stop loss. And let's say, you know what, maybe yes, that is a trend reversal and it is going to get stopped out. But in a case like this, you'd be able to have such a smaller risk if you do get that pullback real close to the stop loss. And that's where, rather than a 3-to-1 risk reward ratio, that's where you're looking at more like a 10-to-1 or 12-to-1 kind of a setup. So even though I'm not saying that, you know, as soon as you get close to the stop loss, definitely take a position. That's one of those times where if you find an entry very close to that, you can use that as just basically swinging at a big reward, small risk kind of a setup. Obviously, if you're using really high leverage like myself, I mean, this type of a setup isn't ideal. That's where you'd want to be, obviously, on much lower leverage, right? Never did quite hit its first take profit. Got very close. What do we have? If we get back above that line, I think it's very realistic that we would end up retesting the 1 hour trend there. Oops. And that actually could have been one of those cases where, hey, we're actually very close to the stop loss. Maybe that would have been a good entry just because we got so close. I'm not really interested in that play. Like I said, I really want to see us retest this 1 hour. But we don't always get what we want, so might not happen. Oh, my Solana trade earlier never got stopped out. Oh, wow, that must have been close. Cool. Um, that was before this stream, by the way. You didn't miss it. If you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about. That's where it was. But I actually entered that way back here. And that was basically because there was one of these red supply zones at this level. It was basically something like this. And since we ended up coming back into that level and got a reversal warning, I was treating it kind of like a double top. And here, let's just see. Yeah, anyways, I was treating it like a bit like a double top, and honestly the fact that I never got stopped out was pure luck because I just basically gave a little bit of wiggle room. My stop loss was literally $20.881. So that's where my stop loss was, and it never got hit. That was pure luck. That was no skill. Just since this is a scalp, I don't want to take a loss on it anymore because I already thought I did. I'm basically going to update my stop loss to right about here, just because here we basically have this low. We have set a lower low. Again, this is a 1 minute, very micro analyzing here, but this would be our current lower high. So if I was really worried about it, I would have my stop loss just above here, but I want it a little higher just in case there's a little fake out. So I'm basically going to adjust my stop loss to just above this level. Again, I know this wasn't a part of the stream initially, but this is just kind of showing you how I adjust my stop loss on the go when I'm looking at such degen timeframes and looking at adjusting stop losses quickly. Yeah, I totally didn't even think I was still in that position. Oops. Did I ever think of to connect my trading view with my broker for rapid entry instead of manually on their own UI? No, to be honest, I've heard of people doing it. I just feel like it's more steps that I'm gonna screw something up, or just I've never really. I don't know. Is it? Do you do that? Is it complicated? Is it super easy to do? Yeah, I'm just kind of scared to link all my things up. I don't know. I don't mind either. Like, I feel like with how good apps are these days, I can switch from TradingView to like Mexc is where I generally trade these days. I find that like I can usually, if I see a trade I want to be in, I can be in it within like 10 seconds. I mean, I can enter pretty quick. It might be something worth looking at if I end up upgrading my trading view so that I can look at the second charts. Then I will definitely need to hop on board with that. Yeah, I might have missed my opportunity with Bitcoin. The fact that it's kind of almost looks like a bit of a head and shoulders here. Those aren't my favorite patterns, to be honest. But I mean, if you wanted to look at this neckline here, we are closing candle bodies below it. It is possible that Bitcoin drops here, but like I said, I was looking for a different setup on Bitcoin and I never got it, and it is what it is. But if I was more if I was really excited to get into a short, I would have started laddering in at this level. I wouldn't have gone all in on my position, but what I like to do, if let's say I think that I'm gonna get caught up in something, I really want to be in a position, but I think I could get a better entry. What I will often do is ladder into a position as well. So let's just say theoretically that we did want to enter at this level here, but I was expecting us to come up to this level. That's where I would probably break my position into about 3 parts, where I'd like just laddering in a few different levels. But I do really like to see how that level's retested, like I was talking about earlier, just because then you have a bit of a stop loss point, right? Because if you get some kind of a failed break along that moving average, then you at least have a reference point or an idea of where that resistance is going to step in. Oh yeah. I am going to update my stop loss to here. Um, can you show again your settings on MDX 3? Absolutely. So yeah, my settings, and guys, with the ALGO 3 as well, there's no magical numbers that, like, they're gonna make your buy and sell signals absolutely flawless, or anything like that. These are just basically the trends that I have used for a long time now and just kind of stuck with. Obviously, it's still important to find out what catches your own eye. Everyone, I mean, I say this all the time, we could have the same trend lines, the same indicators, the same settings, the same absolutely everything, and we could trade the chart completely different, right? So it's important to find out what works for you. Like this W strategy, I've always talked about looking at where they're trending and stuff like that. Like that's just kind of something that I came up with on my own because it's something that I noticed over time, just looking at the charts, something I noticed and I started playing around with. So yeah, like I said, no magic numbers, but that's my settings, my trend one. And this is when I'm trading the 1 minute, right? Is my trend one is the volume weighted moving average 5 minutes. I just find that it reacts quite quickly, the volume weighted one. And trend two is the EMA, the 1 hour. And I've just been using that since day one of using these indicators. So like I was talking about, I've had some excellent buy and sell signals along that trend line that have played out quite well. So I've never changed that. I don't use filter or the auto settings because I don't use the buy and sell signals either. I use the moving average cloud, just on its default, I believe, is 200. I use reversal warnings, that's the W's. I use tops and bottoms, that's those little blue triangles. I keep meaning to change the colors of those so they're easier to see. And supply and demand. That would be the boxes that are automatically the green and red ones. And I mean, what I love about those supply and demand boxes is they basically map out resistance and support the exact same way I do. So if you're like me and you're a degenerate trader on shorter time frames and you're also multitasking, I have 3 monitors on the go generally. So I have I have charts and trading on one. I have YouTube or watching shows or whatever on one monitor, and I'm playing video games on one. So when you're trading the 1 minute, I mean, you have to so often be adjusting trend lines and support and resistance boxes and stuff. And I just find that the Algo 3 does it for me. So it can be quite handy. Whew. I should probably take some profits on that. Close a third anyways. And yeah, like I said, sometimes I'll use W's as stop losses as well. Right now, I can't really do that on this position. It's very situation dependent, right? So if, let's say, now we end up getting a bounce, we see some kind of a W like that, we come back down, and then let's say we form a lower W, then that's kind of where I could start thinking about even breaking up my stop loss a little bit. It quite often is what I'll do. So let's say in that case, maybe I would set half my stop loss above this W and half my stop loss above this W. I've done that before. That's just another way that I like to use those W's, honestly. Like I said, I use them for entering positions, exiting positions, not on their own. Like I said, it's just a little bit of confluence, and it is a signal that you can use for those situations. So I gotta catch up on a couple messages here, Pete. I missed something you said earlier. That feels prone to blow up at the count at the start. Oh yeah, I see that trend line you're looking at. What time frame is that on? Is that the 1 minute? Let me just bring that up again. It was... How did you have that mapped out? Something like... Oh no, you actually had it quite a bit higher, hey? Oh, you're on Bitcoin. Durr. Let me erase some things. Clean things up a little bit here. So you were looking more at something like that. That's more what you were looking at. Yeah, nice little retest. I mean, that's kind of what I was looking at out in Bitcoin with those longer time frames earlier. But like I said, I mean, technically speaking, we may have broke. I've changed so much on my chart since then. But yeah, it's nice to see. I mean, even if we don't want to be bearish, I mean, when you're looking for a quick scalp setup, I mean, that's a perfect situation, right? Where you see that support flip into resistance. Beautiful entries there for a quick scalp. But again, it's the 1 minute, so obviously that move may have played out already. As it stands right now, I would say the bulls on a very micro time frame here. If the bulls are able to push above this line here, just for this very micro swing here, this is obviously we had low, lower, low. If we break this, this would be our lower high on a very rushed micro. Like I said, just the swing itself. If we break above that level, you could end up in, I might actually take a scalp long in that case if we get above that, because you'd have a very tight invalidation, right? But again, we have to actually close candle bodies above that. And then what I would really like to see is closing candle bodies above this, get a little pullback, flip to green candles again, and then look for that entry at that level. Just theoretically, right? We're just trying to stay a step ahead of the game, because when you're looking at the 1 minute chart, I mean, shit changes so fast. If you decide you want to be in a position and you just end up humming and hawing about it for another minute or even 30 seconds, I mean, that trade could be out the window, right? So basically, if it looks like we are going to close candle body above this line here, and that's already changed, right? But if that was the case, if we were all of a sudden trading above here, that's where I would have my other device out. I would already have an order ready to start a bit of a long position, and that's where I would like to, again, I would like to break up my order, right? So if we get a close above that level, in that case, now I'm changing things a little bit because we did drop this level. But if I had decided I wanted to be in a long, that's where I would start laddering in again, invalidation, super tight. So again, it wouldn't have to play out. It would be very micro analyzing, but it would just be looking for that very tight setup, which has obviously changed now because we've broke down below here. Yeah, I'm not comfortable entering along right now. If it's, like I said, I got to take off in a couple minutes here, so I won't even be here with you guys with that anyways. But yeah, does that make sense how I look at structure, you guys? I mean, again, like I said, this is just really zooming in to the swing itself, like before any kind of reversal. It's not a big pattern by any means. You're looking for very short-term scalps there, but just how I don't consider a level broken until you see, or rather, you don't have, like, let's say you're trending downward, you don't have a lower high confirmed until you have a lower low confirmed, right? Hopefully I didn't confuse anyone with those explanations anyways. Just a perfect example. Again, just a quick demonstration in case anybody is having any second thoughts about it. Here would be our most immediate term, obviously. We had this high. We broke that high, so we set a higher high. This right here would have been our lowest point between the two. So that would be your confirmed higher low, but right, because we broke our high with a higher high. So this was our confirmed higher low. And then after we close the candle body below that, then obviously we're in a bit of a downtrend until that changes again, right? But like a lot of people would consider this the higher low, for example. And I understand that, yes, you get that little bit of a structure test kind of a thing, but it's just not a confirmed higher low until we actually would have broke our high, or our higher high in this case, right? If we did something like that, then we'd have a new higher high. This would have been our higher low, but that didn't happen. Hopefully that makes sense as far as structure goes. Let me know if I'm unclear about anything. Below 27,210, we have a BOS break a structure below 27,210. That's down here, I'm assuming. Yes. See, I wouldn't actually consider that a break of structure yet. If we're looking at this whole pattern here, let's say here's obviously our current local high, right? So here we have our high. Before that, where was our high? It was back here, right? So our lowest point between our high and our higher high was way down here. So that's actually more so the level I'm watching as far as a higher low on this trend. And I'm not saying that's set in stone, guys. Like, that's how I look at confirming those levels. Like, I'm not saying that breaking this level wouldn't be bad. That could absolutely end up being all that the market needs to end up nuking to the downside. It's just something to be a little bit cautious of, that the actual break in structure could be a little bit lower, right? All depends what time frame you're looking at, right? Like, obviously here we had that break of structure, but if you're zooming out a little further, I wouldn't consider this one, just because this was our high before we had this low, and we never did break it with this, right? That never did end up eclipsing this level. Just making a mess here. Hopefully that makes sense for you. Like right now on Bitcoin, I'd kind of, again, very zoomed in here, but I'd be kind of looking at that level. It's really messy in here, though. Even that, like, I wouldn't want to give that all too much weight right now. I'd rather see something actually form like we did up back here for a top. With Solana right now, I'm actually going to drop my lower high a little bit, which means I'm going to drop my stop loss a little bit. Let's go right. I just don't like to be right on fives or zeros. I like to keep my numbers not round when it comes to a stop loss, just because so many people target those nice round numbers, right? Um, I'm not sure if I can actually share a photo with you guys or if that'll screw up my stream here. Let's see what happens. There we go. Classic 69. Again, I can't believe that I was even still in that position. I totally didn't think I was, which is why I stopped talking about it there. I had talked about possibly closing it out at the start of the stream. But yeah, my stop loss just got missed, so. Why not 70? 2 degen for 70. Like I said, I can't do those even numbers. That's why. What's the indicator saying? Oh, we're getting into some serious support here. I might actually close a little more here. I'm going to close a quarter of what I have remaining. Just because, again, guys, just using the indicators as confluence, yes, we're absolutely in a nice downtrend here. This short could just keep going. We could just melt right through this and end up hitting way down here. But the fact that we have these big demand zones, we're starting to get these reversal warnings at them. I just want to make sure that I'm doing what I can to make sure that I secure some profits, right? I close limit. I've had market orders fuck me over before in lack of better words. But what I do, like, so in that case, I wanted to be out of it immediately. I didn't want to risk missing my position or my chance there. So I did have a limit set higher. Like when I decided there to take some profits, I set the limit order just a little bit higher because since I'm in a short, I'm closing to buy, or I'm buying to close, sorry. So I set my order just a little bit higher, so it did automatically like trigger right then and there, but I never used market just in case you get that little bit of slippage. And honestly, I haven't seen that happen where it's been significant in quite a while, unless I was watching Pepe and AI Doge a little bit the last few days, and I just decided I'm not going to trade them because it looked like the slippage would be ridiculous, just how they were, just how irrational the candles were moving and just everything very choppy. There was just low liquidity, and I thought that that's just recipe for disaster to end up just getting stopped out way further than I had planned, just because, like I said, slippage, right? So I've just gotten the habit of using limit. That is something worth mentioning, actually, because that has happened to me too. When you try to do that, where you set your limit just a little bit past and you're hoping to catch it immediately, but let's say you were a second too slow and all of a sudden the price has changed and then you missed your order, then you have to go back and edit shit. I've definitely had that happen, and that's why now I generally leave quite a bit of space with my limit order. Yes, exactly. When when shit gets real volatile, I mean, yeah, sometimes you are better off with market. I'm just not comfortable with it because it has screwed me over in the past, is all. So I try and avoid it. I'm actually tempted to hedge along on Solana, but I don't think I'm going to. I mean, technically, we got to break that. I can lower this a little bit again. I'm going to drop this just a little bit. Still want that little bit of wiggle room. And we also have this supply zone up here, so I might have even tightened it up a little bit too much if we get some kind of a wick above this supply zone. But I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with being out of this little scalp. That was a nice one. But you can see, even zoomed in on the 1 minute, you can just see how well that confirmed lower high, right? So obviously we had this low, then we set a lower low, which confirmed this as our lower high, but then we set another lower low, so now we have this as the confirmed lower high. Again, obviously very zoomed in and everything, but you can tell that the market is already struggling with that level a little bit. If we end up getting closes above this and then come back down for some kind of a pullback, and then we start seeing looking like we're finding support, honestly, quite realistically, a good chance it ends up being in this box if that were to happen, right? We have not closed above that, so that structure has not changed. I'm just saying, theoretically, if it did, that would be something to watch for. Where if you got that close above and that structure broke, your invalidation would be below this level, and if you started finding support here, that's where you could take your entry. But again, we never did get that close above that level, so that's not actually a setup at this point. I'm just saying theoretically. The unfortunate thing is, as a trend is doing this kind of a thing, so now that we got this little double top here with this lower low, now if we end up breaking this level, I actually don't have a confirmed lower high because these are basically the same level, right? So I wouldn't actually be able to update my stop loss at all in that case. Let's see if we can find any sort of downward sloping trend line. I know this is Solana, and let me know if you want me to go back to Bitcoin. Well, I'm going to be signing off in a few minutes, honestly. I just want to see what happens with this position now. Otherwise, I would go back to Bitcoin. Ooh, did he? Alarms on the W's. Oh man, that would make my strategy so much more convenient if I didn't have to stare at the chart to see it. That would be awesome. I would also really appreciate it if the 1 hour trend didn't have that lag, because I know previous versions never had that. Let's see how it's way back here. It's just lagging a little bit. Does look like Solana has broken this downtrend, but again, this yellow line is still technically a lower high. If we end up coming back up, since I have such a tight stop loss above this red box here, if we do end up coming up to this level and getting another W, something like that, inside that supply zone, I would actually considering adding back into my position and just loosening my stop loss a little bit. Just because I would be looking at that as a potential continuation of trend. I would definitely not be taking a loss on my position anyways. All I would be doing is cutting into my profits a little bit if that happens. But again, this is one of those theoretical wait and see what happens. But I would be interested in adding into my Solana short if we get kind of a reversal warning and something like that. Or if we see this 5 minute trend come down and we get a W along that, again, I would love to add to my position. And I would be able to keep my stop loss loose and in a nice profit anyways, so I'll definitely have my eyes on this. Stock poker. Made it just for the end again. I was just basically about to take off in a couple minutes here unless anyone has any last minute questions for me. I had a couple things I want to get done here tonight. Oh, nice, Pete. Yeah, man, that'll be so nice. I know you love looking for the W's too. That'd be so nice, and you could set them on so many different time frames, and yeah, that would be awesome. Really looking forward to that. Yeah, exactly. It just makes it a little easier to be a degen while also having a life. It's so easy to get sidetracked on other stuff when you're trying to trade the 1 minute. So yeah, alerts on those signals. Oh man, that would just be wonderful. Yeah, obviously that yellow line, like I said, it's still technically the confirmed lower high. So that's what the Bulls got to break if they want any hope of reversing this trend for Solana here. On the 1 minute, I talk about it as a trend, as if it's a real trend. Code your own automatic trading. That would be pretty sweet. That'd be a fun project. I'd buy. I would be the last guy to be able to do that. I'm basically a tech boomer here. Man, that's awesome. That's something I wish I knew more about. I should really just take the time and learn a little bit more about software programming and that sort of thing. It's so handy in the day that we live in now. Well, I'm just going to hope this thing keeps running tonight, but we'll see. Eventually, it's got to have some kind of a bounce, you would think. But, guys, I think I'm going to take off. I'm getting really hungry, and like I said, I have a few things to do tonight. Trying not to let this one turn into another 2, 3, or 4 hour stream here. I just can't help it. I love talking crypto with you guys, looking at charts. Not enough people in my everyday life want to talk crypto with me, so I always appreciate getting on here with you guys. Yeah, I really only have a few people in my real life circle that actually want to talk crypto with me. Got a couple. Night, Max. Must be real fucking late for you. What time is it? 4? Oh, 3:30, 4. Ooh, nice. Working on big stuff. Nice, nice. By any chance, is that big stuff app for the decks? That would be awesome. Oh, nice. We're getting a bit of a supply zone here. Well, maybe this short can just keep running. Well, like I said, I can't even change that lower high because technically, yeah, we didn't really change any structure. Well, we broke this structure. We set a lower low, but our lower high just stayed the same there because of that double, triple top. The only time a lower high was broken on this little trend for Bitcoin here, this would have been incorrect. That's the only time that we actually set this lower high again, very briefly, and that was invalidated very quickly. Other than that, I mean, anytime you would have kept your stop loss above the previous lower high, it would have been good. Basically, we see W's starting to look like they, getting warning. Let's say we either see W's, the tops do something like this, or the bottoms do something like that. I'm definitely going to be closing most of my position. But, testing some of these lower demand zones here. If that breaks, I mean, we could have a quick little nuke there. Um, that's something I've considered a little bit, Pete. I've never come to a conclusion on that, but I have noticed that quite often. Like, hey, let's say even though the bottoms you have two W's that are trending down, but they're very close to each other. Sometimes that will count as a strong signal, even though they are trending to the downside still. Um, Generally speaking, I'm more paying attention to just the direction, but just when they're side by side like that, sometimes I'll discredit it and just count it as one. Reversal. If, like, let's say all of a sudden we have this W and then we trend just very slightly lower and set another W, something like that, I would consider that being a possible trend reversal. I don't know if I would take that trade or not, just because, like I said, I haven't really come to a conclusion whether that is a good signal or bad. I just haven't paid attention to it too closely. But yeah, quite often when I see that type of a thing, like let's say we see this, I would actually, here, just pretend that there's another W here. I would just consider this one rather than two, just because they're so close together like that. And again, I don't know if there's any science to that or not, because that's just something I haven't really paid too close attention to, and I haven't been using this strategy for years or anything, right? I mean, a few months at this point. The little house signals, I know exactly what you're talking about. That would be the regular divergences. Yes. So you're saying the little house signal matching up with the W there, Thumpcase? Okay. No, not the little blue ones. That would be these bigger orange ones. I mean, these ones are upside down, but one like this, obviously. House shaped. That's what I look at them as too. So yeah, that might be something to consider too. Again, I usually don't have those on, and I've definitely never paid attention to that. But that could be a thing too if you see them kind of overlapping. That very well could be a strong signal. Yes, yes, the regular. And I mean, here we can see that, right? That would have been a beautiful scalp. This one, not so much. I'd have to do a little bit of back testing on that, but maybe that's the kind of thing where you could have an extremely tight stop loss too, right? Like you have these things lining up. Let's say you took the short right at the bottom, but whatever, you had a nice tight stop loss. I don't know how realistic that is because I haven't gone back and tested it. But that would be interesting to check out. Bitcoin's still trading down a little bit. That would be our lower high currently on the 1 minute, on a very micro swing here. Yeah, the TPs are good too. Honestly, I assume this is just me assuming things, but I assume that you could basically do my W strategy with almost any of the signals on the ALGO 3. Again, I can't promise that because I haven't back tested that. But I assume if you see the TPs going in a direction, you see the trend exhaustions going in a direction, you see those house-shaped regular divergences going in a direction, it's kind of pointing out a trend if if you're setting higher lows or lower highs, that kind of thing. You'll start to notice a trend, and I assume all the signals would kind of have that a little bit. I know back when I used to have the buy and sell signals on quite a bit, I would often look at that, which direction, whether they were choppy or if they were trending a direction. So I think any signal would technically do it. I've just chosen the W's, and it's just I have noticed them, and they've been such a strong signal in the past that that's just kind of the ones I chose to do it with. Yeah, the little orange dots, that would be the trend exhaustion dots. Yeah, like they all obviously have their time and place and their own functions. I just really don't like to have too much clutter on my screen. Is usually what it comes down to. What's this guy sitting at now? 70%. The good old 69x. Obviously, guys, that's another thing, right? Like, I'm always posting these 69x trades. It's mostly for the lulls. It's not like I'm going with huge amounts of margin in that. Like, I'm obviously considering risk management and bankroll management and that sort of thing. Like, because obviously a 69x trade doesn't take much to end up losing 20% or something like that. So obviously that's not a full account kind of thing that you want to do. Obviously, before you enter any trade, you kind of want to have an idea of how much you're going to lose if shit goes south. If, like, no matter how sure you are on a setup, you can always be wrong. So you either want a stop loss. I'm a huge advocate for stop losses. I don't like not having them unless you have good bankroll management where you're only putting in a certain percentage of your portfolio or whatever. You're comfortable getting liquidated on that whole position, because no matter how certain you are on something, you can always be wrong, right? So it's important to have some kind of risk management in place, especially if you're being a degenerate like myself and trading on high leverage. Honestly, trading in general, trading with leverage in general is super dangerous. Like, there's no way around it. There's a reason that not everyone does it. Um, yeah, usually I'll do 69x right out of the gate because Mexi, unlike Bybit, I can't just change my position halfway through. Like Bybit, I would do that sometimes. I'd start in a 5 or a 10x position, something like that, a little more reasonable. Still outrageous to a lot of people, but more reasonable in my opinion. And then, yeah, as you grew confident in your position, you could up the leverage, add to your position, whatever, and it would just average it all out. Whereas on Mex, it doesn't seem to do that. So that's unfortunate because that's something that I really like to play with. But yeah, not saying it's what you should do anyways, but yeah, I always enjoyed doing that on Bybit. If I'd get into a nice position, especially like I said, sometimes with that 1 hour trend, like sometimes if it is turning into a trending market, quite often you'll see that every time you come back and test that 1 hour trend EMA, you'll see one of those W's along it, and then wham, you'll just blow up to the upside, and then let's say you come back down, retest it bullishly, get a W along it, bam, straight back to the upside. Sometimes you get in those trending positions where you can just so easily add to your position and then take profits along the way, add back into your position, take profits along the way. That's where it was very nice being able to play around with leverage like that. But again, it's not for everybody. There's obviously risks involved, but yeah, I kind of miss doing that. Yeah, exactly. So you get into a position with smaller leverage, and all of a sudden you're sitting in a juicy profit, and then you can really up your position, and your stop loss is still at break even, or even in a profit, and you have a way bigger position. Yeah, it's fun. The downside to that is, generally speaking, if you're feeling super good about your position, you feel like the smartest man alive because you nailed a trade, and you want to triple down or quadruple down on your position, chances are you should be taking profits instead. Myself as well, I fall victim to that from time to time, where it's like, oh damn it, I should not have added to my position there. That was stupid. That happens. So I mean, that's obviously another thing to consider when you're trading and tinkering with positions, especially if you're looking for more of a swing trade, because sometimes those take so long to play out and to be able to get into a good swing trade, that ruining your swing trade can feel devastating. Whereas at least when I'm scalping and that happens, it's like, well, so be it. I can probably find another trade in a few hours here. So just a few things to consider there. Let me just check your chart there, Pete. Do I consider that a double bottom? That's Bitcoin on the 30-second, do you say? I can only look at the 1 minute, but looking at your picture there, it looks like those W's are it looks like a very slightly lower low. So there's still that warning that it may be trending lower. I do see the reason why this could be a double bottom if we just take this wick. I mean, obviously, we never did get a candle body close below that, so that could just be a bit of a failed break, and now we may actually end up finding support here. It's just a little bit risky, right? Because we still technically do have a lower low, lower high would then be here. Because that's our highest point between the two. So you are still technically in this little bit of a downswing or downtrend. What are the other indicators saying? That's another thing. Look at the other indicators. We have a very red money flow on the oscillator 5. Again, this is just the 1 minute, but take it for what it is. We have a big red money cloud, money flow cloud. We have these hidden bearish divergences. We have this red dot here, possible continuation. The oscillator 4, we also have some hidden bearish divergences up here. So there's a little bit of mixed signals. I don't know if I'd want to swing at a double bottom on that. I'm not telling you not to, because there is obviously a demand zone there. I just see the possibility of some risk there. Do I take the EMAs into account? The only EMA I've really been watching for my scalping is that 1 hour EMA on the ALGO 3. That's usually the only one I have up. Yeah, I guess, and the 5 minute one. I absolutely see why you would use a whole bunch of other ones and stuff. A lot of them get respected very well. This is just kind of what I use with the ALGO 3, so. Anyways, guys, that thing happened where this turned into a 2-hour stream, which I'm not complaining. That obviously means I always have a great time with you guys here. But I do actually have to get going. I am going to just leave my Solana position going for now. Stop loss. This 5 minute trend is going to cross beyond my stop loss soon, so that may actually still work. Like I was telling you before, I would be interested in adding to my position if we get some kind of a bounce up towards here and see a reversal warning in that supply zone or along this 5 minute trend, that volume weighted moving average. I'd consider adding, but as it stands right now, I've locked in some decent profits on this position. I'm going to let that run for a little bit, see what happens tonight. I also don't want to be trading too much because I'm going to start be visiting the couch within the next couple hours here, and I don't want to start opening up positions right before bed, so this will probably be my last trade of the day anyways. Two a.m. Yeah, got a bunch of night owls in here. It's only 7 p.m. for me, and I'm exhausted. Yeah, we tried our best to avoid the 2-hour stream, but we just can't help it, so we'll probably do it again next week. But Again, guys, as always, thanks so much for tuning in. I always appreciate having you guys here, having your input on the market, having your questions. It's just great. Like I said, I love talking crypto with you guys, so thank you so much. If you are watching this stream a little bit later on my YouTube channel, anybody who's with us here, and if you appreciated this video and this insight that we went over, please do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you do want to be a part of these live streams with us, as well as other live coaching events in MDX Crypto's VIP Discord, as well as having access to my favorite indicators on TradingView, there's a 15% discount referral link down below to join. And with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.